Welcome to everybody joining. If you're watching this on the replay, remember hashtag replay. I'm glad if you're with me live today. We're going to jump into this. We have Mr. Angelo Roberts here. We're going to get into the future of work, virtual assistants. He is somebody that is assisting entrepreneurship every day in so many different ways. So I'm really excited to get into it. He's got his own podcast show called The Ramblings. I've been on that. You can check that episode out. We're going to have a lot of fun. Stick with me. We'll be right back after the Biz Dev.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Biz Dev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
All right, you know what it is. We're going to introduce Angelo Roberts here. Angelo is the owner and founder of OffSource, a service-based tech startup providing owners with office support. He is also the host of his own podcast called The Ramblings, which showcases overlooked entrepreneurs, stories, and actionable business development advice. So it's really a place where you go to talk to entrepreneurs, just like this show is. He's got the whole podcast thing going. It's really impressive. Thank you for being on the show with me today. Angelo, please say hello.
Thank you so much, Cameron, for having me. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. Happy 2022, guys. Yes, I'm Angelo Roberts Jr. specifically because I'm named after my father. And I am the owner and founder of OffSource, which I say is we are a team of virtual assistants. We're here to support owners. Thank you for having me today.
That's awesome. Angelo, so talk to me a little bit about what OffSource does. Obviously, we talked a little bit about virtual assistants, but how do you actually help clients? And then we'll kind of get some of your backstory.
So OffSource is technically a business as service platform. Just like any freelancer, whether you need a website, whether you need social media management, administrative support, we handle all of those freelance business services that a lot of small businesses outsource for. And so it's our goal to be able to bring like that same accessibility and affordability that singular freelancers have, but for an all-in-one business service, meaning that you don't need to stack up and have a marketer, a social media person, an admin, a lawyer, things of that nature, because it can get so expensive when you're paying for things on top of other things. And so all of these services are essential business services. You know, we need websites, we need marketing, we need admin. No man's an island. And so what OffSource does is provide all of these business services powered by real people, because AI is the wave now, but powered by real people to really help support these business owners all through a platform so that they can be flexible and work from anywhere. Traditionally, a lot of owners have had to, go and hire and bring employees into their building, and no more.
Love it. Hey, DJ, I'm so glad you're here with us. Thanks for tuning in here. Love your questions. If you're watching this show live right now, let us know where you're tuning in. City, state, province, put that into the chat. We want to hear where you're tuning in from. I always enjoy hearing that. Also, if you have questions around virtual assistants, the future of work, we want to get into it. I'm actually coming to you live, not from my regular home office, but from Serendipity Labs in White Plains, because the Wi-Fi went out where I live. So I'm waiting until Thursday for them to repair that. So really kind of poignant for our discussion today, the future of work, because it really doesn't matter where you're tuning in from, other than my not normally having my green screen in the background. So my look is a little bit different with the background. Who would know, right? And so that's sort of the point. You can work from anywhere. And services like Angelo's can help you do that, right? Because then you're not grounded. You don't be in the office. I know I'm very much, I prefer, just because that's what I'm used to, having somebody in my office that I'm working with. Even the mention of a virtual assistant is sort of stressful because I'm like, well, how do I manage that? Are they actually going to be dedicated to my business? Can I teach them? Will they be there? Will they be available when I need them? And so I know we'll be talking a little bit more about reframing that conversation for entrepreneurs, because this is really a way to take advantage of, first of all, the current landscape which we're in, because you can't have this conversation without talking about COVID and all the ramifications that's having on our society right now. But also, don't you want to live in a world where you don't have to be tied down? I often talk to my wife about the ball and chain kind of job where you have to be locked into a certain place to a certain time. And so that to me is the enemy for a lot of people. You want to be able to do your work from anywhere. Doesn't even have to be you doing it, right? That kind of idea where you can actually free yourself up and do work from anywhere at any time and not necessarily have to do the work yourself, right? Because if you're in an entrepreneurship role and you have to be at your desk for 40 hours a day, do you have a business or do you have a job? And what do you actually prefer, right? DJ says she's coming in from Florida. We got Stephanie coming in from Cornwall on Hudson. Thanks for being here, Stephanie. We appreciate you. So talk to us a little, before we get into this future of work conversation, Angelo, talk to us a little bit about your background. Did you start out, at 5 or 10 years old thinking you were going to create a virtual assistant business? How did you get to where you are now? What did that road look like? And why are you passionate about assisting entrepreneurs?
I love that question. It's like one of my favorite questions. I am what they would consider a purebred entrepreneur. I didn't know I wanted to own a virtual assistant business, but I knew I wanted to own a business. So when you would ask the kids in class, like, oh, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be the CEO of Apple. I want to be the CEO of Samsung. At one point, I wanted to be the CEO of Best Buy because I'm like, I have great ideas for like marketing strategies and things. And so I was something that you would consider a purebred entrepreneur. I was always looking for different ways of entrepreneurship. I was the kid that was out there shoveling, raking leaves, cutting grass, picking up trash, all of the above, tag sales, anything to make a dollar on my own, right? And that was something that, my parents taught me. I am a second generation business owner, actually, technically first generation son of a business owner. Both of my parents are business owners. And so that actually plays a very unique role, but I was able to see it from different perspectives. I'm also the oldest of 3 kids. So that makes me the natural assistant. So when we talk about assisting entrepreneurs, my love for assisting entrepreneurs really comes from me being the oldest and my love in business and helping my parents. So when I'm helping all of these other business owners, it really feels like it's like I'm helping my parents again. And all of these owners, they need that help, right? They don't have kids sometimes that want to support the business or jump in and cut grass, So I really love being able to help support these owners in ways that are just unimaginable. I always knew I wanted to work in an office because my dad being in real estate, we did all of the nitty gritty: snow removal, trash removal, sewage removal, sometimes evictions, the entire nine. So I knew from an early age that at least when I did entrepreneurship, I know I want to be in the office. And so it really kind of culminated when I was like in college for accounting. Like, okay, I don't want to be an accountant, but I don't want to just be a bookkeeper either. I want to do something that allows for my brain to be creative every single day. And I still knew I wanted to be a business owner. And so just looking at different kinds of businesses, looking at different models, you really start to think almost like a skateboarder. Oh, that's a cool spot to skate. Oh, that's a cool spot to skate. You start looking at things. Oh, that would be a cool business idea. Oh, this business could improve if they just did this. And so taking that, I was a bookkeeper for a small business, and it really grew to me being an in-person assistant. I was the right-hand person. I did the bookkeeping, I did client management, I made sure that we got us digital. We went from a whiteboard to a laptop. And all of those things really just bled into me being the assistant, because I believe the assistant's the most dangerous person in the game. If you want to know something about a business, you talk to the assistant. If you want to know where the bones are buried, you talk to the assistant. If you want to know what your favorite boss or your favorite entrepreneur is doing, you talk to the assistant. And they know just enough about everything to be able to handle everything. And so there's a saying that I'm going to end it on that says, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And my whole life, I heard that until I heard the actual ending part, because no one ever talks about that. There's a phrase that comes after that. And it goes like this: a jack of all trades, but a master of none, but usually better than a master of one. And so when I heard that, it really clicked for me. And being a VA allows for me to do all of these different skills that I have and still be the owner. So I was able to
That was
take
poignant.
being number two.
That just hit
one.
me. That just hit me. Master of none, but usually better than one. I like that. Yeah, I want to just do a little bit of a mic drop on that. That was awesome. All right, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's really what that is, right? And so as a VA, I'm able to handle all of these different skill sets that I have and put them to use. And so I'm never bored. I love being a VA. That's why I do what I do.
I love it. All right. So we have a lot of questions from DJ Durant in particular. Silver Fox Talks on YouTube. So let's jump into some of these, and then we'll kind of go back, because I also want to talk about your father and your family, because I know your family, when we've talked personally, comes up a lot, and I know you're particularly passionate, but I want to make sure we get to the heart of the matter and get some of these questions answered for DJ as well. How do you know when you need a virtual assistant? What are the key markers?
When you feel like you need help, when your business is growing, know what has to happen next. But when you have help, it makes things a whole lot easier. So if you're at the point where you're thinking, I need help, I think I might need some help, you probably do. And so you have to think about, where are the areas that you are not the best in, or the areas that you're just plain boring, right? What do you not like doing? Because you could use that time that you're supposed to be doing that to do something more efficient. And you don't have to do what you don't like. So if you feel like, hey, I need some kind of help, chances are you do. As owners, we love this whole DIY culture and do it yourself, which I'll get into later. But no business owner that you admire does it themselves. So why are you? So if you feel like you need to hire, you probably do.
All right. And then she asks, what's a good way to know you're ready and identifying what they can do for you, which I think is something common, right? It's a hard thing. And I know for me, it's come back to, do I know what to do myself? And what I mean by that is, am I able to hand a task off even to myself? So if I had a clone of myself that even had my brain, and I gave them specific instructions, would they be able to accomplish the task? And sometimes the answer to that question is no. And so it's very difficult to ask somebody to do something that you really can't do yourself. Now, that being said, is there somebody better at video editing and all these kind of things? Absolutely. But if you don't know what you want to begin with, it can be very challenging. I'll give the example of, music. If I say to you, create an intro song to me, but I don't give you, country versus a hip hop sound versus a pop sound, when the result comes back to me, it's sort of silly to be disappointed because I didn't lay out any parameters, right? And so
I agree.
we gotta have some parameters. So you have to have some parameters that you jump into with this. With that being said, and laying that down, hopefully that's a good setup for you. What's a good way to know you're ready and identifying what they can do for you?
Identify what you do in a week, right? So a lot of times we always are focused on the things that, are large things. I want to do social media. That's a very large thing. Look at where you're spending your time throughout the week, right? So if you're spending your time doing emails, if you're spending your time replying to comments, those are the things that are taking up your time. Now look at the things that you should be doing that no one else can do because you're the owner, especially at a small stage. Just look at all of the things that you do in a week and see, what is the most time consuming and what can I hand off? Those are the easily identifiable things, because those are going to be things that you don't like, that take up too much time, that you just would rather be doing something else. And it's usually best to hand that off to a VA. So that's how I identify it. See what you do in a week and then make a basis on that.
And then, very specific is, and I love answering these very specific questions because I think they're always helpful to somebody else, right? We think our problems are our own problems, but so many people are facing the same challenges. And DJ says, and Silver Fox Talks on YouTube, she just went solo, but don't want to wait. Would like to be prepared or work towards it in place, right? So she's somebody that's starting on this journey, getting her stuff figured out. So what would you recommend to her for having her ducks in place to jump into this journey of getting some help?
If you're solo and you're just jumping into the journey of getting help, due diligence is going to be very important. Talk to other people that have done hiring. It's always great when you have a community of other people that you can talk to. Very much go talk to another owner and see, hey, what were the complications with your hiring process, especially people within your industry, right? So me hiring another virtual assistant is going to be a whole lot different than one of my clients who's runs a caregiver business hiring, because that job is different, especially in today's market. A lot of people are talking about this great resignation. And it's really just because people have options. They don't have to work at a singular desk, 9 to 5, or they don't have to work at different locations at different sites at these wild different times. People have these options because of the internet. And so when you're doing your own hiring, especially if you're solo and you're doing your first hire, you're going to want to do due diligence into your industry. What are the pros and cons of your job? What don't you like to do? Because when you think about that, what you don't like to do based on your industry is most likely going to be something else that someone else doesn't like to do. So you're going to have to do your due diligence and really understand what you're trying to hire for. Once you understand what you're hiring for, it makes your due diligence a whole lot easier, and it makes the hiring process a lot more comfortable because you've done the research.
I love that. I see a lot of people, and I was just recently part of a mastermind yesterday where people the first thing they want to outsource is like sales, for example, because they say, sales is difficult. It's a hard thing for me to do. I don't want to do, I just want to do this work that I'm really good at. And I usually see that that's a mistake. I listen to folks like Gary Vaynerchuk. They also talk about that being a mistake. The first thing that you want to hire for are the simple tasks that, why are you paying yourself? If you charge $50 an hour, $100 an hour, whatever your rate is, why are you asking yourself to do a $12, $50 an hour job, a $25 an hour job? Pay somebody else to do that so that you can actually hit those goals that you have for yourself in terms of sale. It does require you to push yourself and actually sell the business, because you're trading the time for the money. You need to have the money coming in. And so that can be that hard chicken or egg type of place to be. But if you understand what it is your business does and you understand your value, that mowing the grass, for example, is not a good use of your time when you could be doing other things, right? We're playing this game all the time of trading time for money. And so you're wanting to make a good trade based on what you're doing. When you're starting out, and you just have a lot of extra time, you can do some of these tasks. But as soon as you get to that point where you know that you can fill your tasks with revenue generating pieces, you want to focus on that as quickly as possible. And DJ saying, great, thanks. Super on point. I feel on track. So that's good. All right. So we're helpful. All right. So I got this question for you. I didn't know if you wanted to kick any feedback on that, Angelo. You good? So
no, yeah.
All right. So let's get into our takeaways here. Talk about why every single win in any capacity is a win that should be celebrated. We're starting out here in 2022, the beginning of the year. A lot of people are introspective, self-retrospective on the last year, right? Talk to us about how important it is to celebrate the wins here.
Oh my gosh, it's super important, man. I almost got away from that at one point, actually, and really had to get back into it because celebrating the wins is gas to your car. I've been in business 2 years now officially. January 1st marks when we launched in 2020. And so that's a win for
Congratulations, by
me.
the way. That's a big deal.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And when you look at what business is supposed to be, the goal shouldn't be how much money you make, even though money is what drives a business. The goal is how long can you stay in business? And it's almost like a legacy play in that sense, because it doesn't matter if you made $5 million in 5 years if you go out of business in year six. So the game is how long can you be in business? And the longer you're in business, the longer that you have more money. And so I really think that celebrating the small wins is important because you don't know how long it's going to get to take to any green kind of point, right? Every single win must be celebrated, at least in the beginning. And the reason is because big wins are very, very far and few. It took me 2.5 months to land my very first client after officially launching, and another 2.5 before I actually got paid from the second client. And so that's roughly 4.5, 5 months of very low, anything, nothing happening, right? There's a lot of output, a lot of input, not as much output coming back. And so those wins are what keep you going in between your big wins. Those super, super, super small wins where you're saying, hey, we just got a new client. This is client 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your first 10 clients, your first 10 customers should be celebrated because you hit 5 clients, you hit 5 customers, you hit 10. That's a new milestone. Every new customer is a milestone, even if it's 11, even if it's 13. Because what happens is you get a couple of big wins under your belt, and now you're like, okay, I don't need to celebrate these small wins. But what you fail to realize is celebrating those small wins is what gave you the gas to continue to make it to your next big goal. And so when you have too far of space in between celebrations of goals, it starts to like seep into your mindset and really starts to feel depressing. You start to get into a lull. You're like, oh, this is where you feel, oh, I didn't hit my quota this month, but you still made money and you're in the green. You have to just take every win as you can. It's extremely hard because you always feel like we should be elevating, we should be moving to the next level. But you have to stay in your areas.
I love this. And Silver Fox on YouTube, DJ Durante. Yes, damn, this is motivating. Stephanie says,
Thank
I
you,
don't
thank
do
you.
that, and I really need to start. Inspires you to continue winning. Absolutely. I find, if you are hitting yourself over the head with your challenges and your obstacles and things that you're bad at, which, a little bit of looking in the rear view, being critical of how you do stuff, that's how we build, right?
Right.
We fall down, we get back up, we look at it, we say, all right, I did this and I need to improve on that. That's great, right? It can be very constructive. But if that's all you're doing, then it becomes self-abusive, right? And you got to build yourself up. You got to have your mantra in the morning, got to have what you're thankful for. When I start not counting the blessings, when I start not saying I'm so thankful for my wife and all the things that it just takes one little fight, one little negative thing to send me off the rails and take me to a really negative place. So just remembering all of the good things, it helps you foster and build upon great relationships, not take them for just forget their worth and their value, right? Taking them for granted, that kind of thing. Being thankful, that attitude of gratitude is so important.
Speaking of grateful, I don't mean to cut you off. I don't mean to cut you off, Cameron. But speaking of grateful, I just want to like share like a win that was so small that I would just like to like let everyone know, because it's that kind of thing that will keep you going. When I first started the business, it wasn't Offsource, it was Angelo's Assistants of America. This was like right before the pandemic hit. And so doing networking, Cameron, as you know, right before the pandemic was all in person. So I would have to get dressed up in suits, just like you're dressed up all the way now. And I would drive an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, to go out to like Stanford, New York, Bridgeport, Norwalk, all these places within, where businesses meeting were held. And I was just grateful that I was in a suit going to a meeting, right? I was grateful that I was, in a room with other business minded people. I was grateful that I'm the youngest person in the room. Like, all of those are little wins that I celebrated. And there's, I'm sure, videos on the internet somewhere of it, but though, like, that small. So for example, if you're quitting your job to go be solo, celebrate the fact that you actually made that maneuver. Celebrate that you quit. Celebrate your first day in business. Celebrate your first week in business. Because guess what? You have a lot more weeks to go. And if you don't celebrate any of them, who is? Because no one else is celebrating your wins necessarily, especially when they're young. And the hardest part is to see all of these other companies and people on social media with these large wins, and this company raised a certain amount of money and all of these kinds of things, but it's not the same. You have to appreciate your wins. So I was appreciative that I was wearing a suit and not a McDonald's uniform. I was appreciative that I was in a car and not walking a dog.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. A lot of people could say, oh man, Apple hit 3 trillion, and they look at the negative aspect of that is like, I'm not hitting 3 trillion, but the other side of that is 3 trillion is possible, right? And so I think the opportunity, talk a lot about it on this show, the other show that I do with Steve Spiro, this abundance mindset and the idea that there is a lot for you, and really focusing on that rather than there's a lot of competitors in my space. No, there's a lot of collaborators in your space. There's a lot of people to learn from in your space. I don't have to do this by myself. I have support. I have videos as resources, right? It's really a big deal. And DJ say I celebrated a few things. Thank you. All right, there we go. She's popping some emoji bottles of champagne. Good to hear the All right, so let's get into the second question, or second point, I should say, second takeaway. Why owners should focus more on customer service, and how can they improve their customer service? So talk to us about this.
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite thing. And I think I specifically had put this there for this reason. Customer service is the most important part of your business. And I want to make that extremely clear. It is the most important part of your business. Customer service mixed with customer experience. And the reason is because customer service and customer experience, it's more than just what happens after the sale, after you close. It's what they felt before they got to you. It's what they felt during talking to you, what they feel after, and what they feel 1 year from now. What people fail to realize when it comes to customer service is that your customer service lasts a long time. And it's about being professional and polite sometimes. Sometimes it's just not being upset. The same way that when we call the Bank of America, Verizon Wireless, because we're cussing them out over our bill, and they're like, yes, I'm so sorry. All of that matters. And the reason that matters is because at the end of that conversation, we look back and we say, dang, I didn't have to go off on that particular person. It's not their fault, about my bill or anything like that. They didn't do any of that, right? It's about customer service. I have, especially in this youth, right? A lot of young people are trying to be like business owners, and it's like a very popular thing now. But because of the previous generation and how they did business and hard, sharp elbows, and it's about being like mean almost, where that has leaked into today's society, where they're now being mean to customers. They're letting people know, oh, I don't think you're right. I don't think that your money or your time is worth it to me because I'm a business owner. And so that automatically puts me on a pedestal. And that is absolutely incorrect. A lot of owners that are coming in have this mindset because of what they've seen other business owners do. And I'm not condoning it, but it just happens to be something that comes. They see these other business owners and they hear that they were mean. They hear that, some people didn't like them, but that's just how business is. You got to get what's got to happen is what's got to happen. And I completely disagree with that. Customer service starts with how you treat your people, how you treat your employees, how you treat the people you collaborate with, how you treat the people before, during, and after their sale, right? Customer service is what makes people come back and say, I would like to work with you. I'm actually going to share a story. I just had a client come back and start working with us again because he loved how we spoke to him. He remembered how nice I was. He literally called, and mind you, I'm not going to say names or anything, but this was an extremely difficult client. I had to go through heck and high water to make sure this client was happy. And I was like, you know what? They left. They like their time was done and like they're good. And I was like, oh, I'm fine. I can wash my hands clean. I get a call a couple of days ago and they're like, hey, you were so amazing. I loved your customer service. I absolutely loved and appreciated the way you talked to me like a normal human and how you made sure that you followed up on everything and just was true to your word. I'd like to continue working with you again in 2022. And we did business the next day. So like customer service is going to be like the most intangible driver to the success of your business, because it's really going to be the metric through which your customers or clients are able to really determine the value, right? And so your customer service is going to be wrapped up into their experience and how they feel, their feedback of the actual product or service that you're giving, right? So if you're a service, how good is your service? How good are you at what you do? Can you improve? The reason that you should improve is because your customers and clients will feel a lot better if you do. It's almost like when Apple made the cheaper iPhone and they had like the non-glass kind of case. There was backlash. All of that matters and affects your customer service. And here's the craziest thing. It's like trust. Customer service is business trust. Think of it as that. Your customer service and your experience equals your business trust. And so trust takes 5, 10, 15 years to build up and gone in 5 seconds. And customer service works just like that. You're only as good as your last at bat. And your customers are going to remember that.
Let me just say this, because I think this is a big deal, and so you can bridge the gap here with the VEA question, because talking about customer service, and this is one where we get into this place. Well, I need help, and some of the help that I need needs to be client facing, and I don't trust anybody else to do this, and I don't necessarily trust, are they going to be available? So meeting out that kind of thing, and before you take off on that route. Perfectly to go along with your conversation. My Wi-Fi goes out last night. I'm on the phone with Optimum, and we did the problem solving thing. Didn't work. They can't get a technician out to me till Thursday. I'm like, I got live shows going on. This is unacceptable. Let me speak to a supervisor. Now here's the wrinkle where it really goes off the rails for me. She starts telling me certain things, and then she's going back on it, right? So now she's not being consistent in how she's presenting the case. And she gets into this rule, and I don't know if this is a rule that Optimum set up, but we have to be careful as business owners. Somebody made a rule somewhere that there has to be a supervisor on the floor to get somebody into a supervisor queue. So she's saying, you can talk to a supervisor, but it's going to take 24 hours. And I say, okay, well, put me into that queue. If that's the best you can do, put me into that queue. She's like, oh, you know what? I can't put you into that queue right now because there's not a supervisor on the floor. You can't put me into the queue to talk to a supervisor in 24 hours because there's not a supervisor on the floor. That's where we were, right? So you have to be really careful about setting up rules and how you're doing stuff, especially as you're scaling. But I see even small business owners, and I've seen myself create a rule and then not have flexibility and not have authority in that moment to change something. A perfect example is somebody's calling me around a refund, and I've made a rule in my head. I'm not giving a refund, unless it's X, Y, Z. And I'm getting in my own way instead of listening to the customer and doing what's best to, what am I trading here? Potentially $200 for $1,000 worth of good, word of mouth feed. You really need to sort of do that math in your head, and it can hurt in the moment because maybe you need that $200 or that $25 or whatever it is. Right. But you have to make these long-term decisions when you're dealing with clients. So bridge the gap here. I'm getting a BA that's involved with my company to do something that's client facing. How do you sort of make sure that customer service piece that's also important is built into this relationship I'm building with somebody that isn't full-time with business?
I think the easiest way is you have to incubate, right? Like I said, you have to identify what you're doing, what you know how to do, and the process and the way in which you would want to do it, so that can be replicated by somebody else in a much easier fashion. right? And so one of the easiest way to do that is create a standard operating procedure. Create a set of like sheets that say, this is how we operate. This is the scale in which is it supposed to happen. And this is the outcome that is coming from that particular service or whatever is being implemented, right? And the flexibility has to come in because, as you said, you don't know what the end goal for that particular customer could be. Having that refund could mean that he shares his amazing experience because of your customer service with 5 other people. Like you said, we don't want to get in our own way. And a lot of times we do because we see, as we said, it all goes back to our idea of business. It goes back to what we see in the movies, what we read on the news, what we, read in articles about what other business owners do and how they move. And that, believe it or not, influences us. And so if you're influenced from anything, let it be that customer service is going to be the key because you have to have trust. Now, we had mentioned client-facing work. Now, that's one of the issues that I'm trying to, particularly alleviate right now. How can we, hire for client-facing work and trust them? You have to do what you have to do. It's like an NBA team. Training is very important. They don't just trade and say, hey, come on, LeBron, you're going to just play for us. No, he goes to practice. LeBron goes to practice. So your employees should be in training. When you're trying to build a company, I always think the best strategy is to incubate, right? When you bring someone on, train them, retrain them, and then retrain them again. And then provide honest, but nice, it doesn't have to be, mean, nice feedback that's critical and very helpful to what needs to be done. That's going to cover a lot of different things because no one is going to be perfect. Think of it like this. We always know that someone could be better than what we're currently doing. This person could come in and they may not necessarily be as good as you, but if you incubate and train them, then they will be as good as you. They will have that knowledge that you have as long as you're willing to pass it on. But you have to be willing to put in that time and effort. People are hiring and are automatically assuming that once you hire this person, they should just hit the ground running. People graduate from college, get into these jobs, and then still have to be retaught how that particular company goes about doing the exact same thing that they just learned how to do. So in that same fashion, just like a college, just like a sports team, when you hire, you have to incubate your players. You have to incubate your employees. How often are you finding out what they're interested in? What motivates them? What do they like to do, right? So for example, one player or employee might take less money, but want more free time, or in this particular case, more bench time, more play time. I want to be a starter on your team. They might want to be a manager. They might want to level up. Status might be important to them. Some players are just in it for the money. Some employees are in it for the money, and you're going to have to cough up that money. People think of business as this outlier when it comes to operations. Look at how a business owner in terms of basketball operates. When you're a sports owner, you have to make sure you're moving your pieces around. Sometimes certain people have to be traded. Sometimes you have to make sure you have to make the best decision for the company and the team. And so the same thing has to happen when you're incubating and you're training and you're hiring. You have to make the best decision for the company. You can't be facing clients all the time. And so training, incubating allows for you to have that trust because you've taught them. You're not just relying on what their skills are, you're training them in your own way, which is why we have something at OffSource called the OffSource method. It's exactly how we're supposed to do things. And it just leaves room for flexibility because that person isn't me. How I want someone else to do something isn't how I'm going to do it because I want that person to own that job. I want that person to be the best goddamn video editor that they can be. And they're only going once you're the best or they're better than you, they're now going to start telling you how to do the certain things. And that's always should be the goal. Your employees should tell you how to do their job.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, I talk a lot about, you can do more with a team. And so if you're incorporating people in, and I'm sort of curious to hear from you because there's, as you're getting a virtual assistant, and I heard you with training, right? So I think you're bringing in a virtual assistant, you got to give time to training, but there's this, I don't know, for me in my head, I'm trying to get my head around it. And I don't know if it's, something for our viewers too. Please, if you're having this question, please chime in and back me up here. And I'll just say hello to Coach Louboutin from Boracay Island, and we got Susan Lynn Castelli checking in from Ontario, who's also saying that absolutely customer service is most important. The golden rule: treat your customer the way you would like to be treated. Obviously, yes. Really, really important stuff, right? All right. I'm budgeting time to train this virtual assistant. What happens if this virtual assistant is no longer? And I know that the same can be said for an in-office employee, but I think for a lot of people, well, if I'm putting the time into finding an employee, I've made sure that they're available to me. Yes, something could come out, but I've sort of worked. I'm working with Angelo at Offsource. I'm getting a virtual assistant. How do I know this person is going to be around? I'm going to invest the time and the money and to train them how to do my system the way I want it done, and create a team player. How do I know they're going to stick around?
You don't. That's the scariest part, I guess, of how you don't know if they're going to stick around. It sucks. Unlike in sports, in this particular aspect, a player can ask to be traded and you can say no. However, employees can quit. They can say, you know what, I'm no longer going to work for you, and then you've invested this time, money into this particular person, and you're not going to get the results that you thought. Move on faster. It's just the down part of business. What are you going to do? There's only but so much you can do, which is why due diligence matters. But the same way when you're hiring an employee, which costs probably a lot more because you have to have an actual building, you have to bring that person in. They're probably going to want to be paid for training. There's a whole lot of things: hiring, firing, W-2s, paperwork. All of these other things come with hiring, and they can still leave. So even like with a VA, if you're hiring a freelancer, they can leave. Us, we don't leave. We're off-source. That's what we do. But anyone can leave.
So for off-source, and this is something good, getting in bed maybe with a virtual assistant company versus an independent operator, or getting somebody maybe out of the Philippines, for folks that have really dug into the virtual assistant thing, trading off, you get into an economy that has a better ratio in terms of what is good pay for them versus what's good, where our money goes, in this country. To me, it sounds like maybe the game is making sure you have enough budget to maybe train 2 or 3 virtual assistants so that you can really expand the team. 1, and 2, if somebody leaves, you have some sort of consistency, even if somebody bows out.
I would disagree with that necessarily, because it can scare a lot of people in that would want a VA to thinking, oh, I need to be able to afford 2 or 3 VAs just to get 1. It's just hire fast, fire faster. You're never going to know. Like when you look at any traditional hiring experience, think about the idea of calling people's what do they call it? Their contacts, right? You're going to trust someone else to give you their best 3 referrals for you to go find out, not knowing anything about their business, this other person, what they do, the role they had, how long they were there, just confirming with someone that I gave to you this information. And so when we look at a lot of the traditional hiring aspects, it's just a bunch of hooey. We never know. And so you can spend, 2 or 3 virtual assistants at a time, but that's not going to negate the fact that due diligence is important, and you're going to have to just prepare. Let move on faster than you moved in with them. That's the only thing. And you have to be real. You have to be 100% real with yourself. Are you doing the best you can at training, hiring, and finding and doing due diligence?
And you can ask these questions. Are you going to be around? Are you going to commit to 3 months, 6 months, a year? I love that piece of it, because the fear stuff sort of guides the conversation. What are you afraid of? Well, let me ask questions around that so that I can, first of all, limit my own fear, get some confidence. But I love what you said: hire fast, fire faster, right? If you find somebody that isn't working out, that's the beauty of working with somebody that's not an in-office employee, because you spend a lot of time finding somebody, and then you got to stick with it, or to a certain degree, and you may even be required by law with an employee to stick with it for a certain amount of time, or write-ups and all these different kinds of things that go into hiring responsibly and treating people well. So in hiring a contractor, you get some of these kind of benefits. This is what it is. This is what I'm looking for. Can you deliver? Are you delivering? If not, move on. The low risk environment sort of makes sense. I love that. All right, so let's get into our third talking point here, our third takeaway. Remote work is the future, period. How do you move with it? So talk to me about that. What do you mean by remote work is the future, period?
Remote work is like, we talked about it earlier. There's a mass resignation apparently, and it's because of the internet. But when we look at who's mass resigning, people that work at Walmart, people that work at Starbucks, people that work at McDonald's, Burger King, because they can go get a job and make $40,000 on TikTok. If like when you work in a lower income job, your options for what you need to survive are a whole lot lower. If you're only making $1,200 a month, that means you only need to make $1,200 a month in order to supplement that kind of income. So things like TikTok, being a LinkedIn influencer, podcasting, being a virtual assistant, being a social media manager are all viable options now. 10 and 15 years ago, when things were in its infancy still, kind of, being a YouTube influencer was like, oh, you want to be a YouTube influencer? That's not a real job. Now now you're an actual celebrity if you're a YouTube influencer. Being a podcaster leads to talk shows. Being a video editor leads to being a great music video. There's a really cool person that I follow called Cole Bennett. He makes music videos from his iPhone, and obviously he's grown his company to be a lot more now. But he's going back to the roots of making videos just from the iPhone. And so with all of these people having so many different options, why do they have to stay at your job? Why do they have to work for $13 an hour picking up cement? Why do they have to flip burgers for $10 an hour? In some places of the country, they're flipping burgers for $7. People are delivering your food for $2.75 an hour. So why would I do that when I could go do something that I love and work from home? Think about the commute. I live in Connecticut, so commute is a very large thing. New York is right there. So we have people that will travel an hour and a half by train every single day. That's an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back, on top of your 9 to 5. So your 8 hours just became 11 hours. Why? Why do I need that? Remote work is the future. I know a lot of you have seen Facebook. You're watching on Facebook. It's no longer called Facebook, but the app is, but the company's not. It's called Meta. Got one of these. The metaverse is going to absolutely change everything. And that's because of meetings and work.
And show that device a little bit longer here for folks.
Got an Oculus. It's an Oculus Quest 2.
Yeah, it's just for anybody that's watching this that really hasn't got the message, right? Facebook changed their name to Meta. And the reason that they did that is they think that the metaverse or the virtual universe is the future. And the Oculus for $300 is this very, very low cost device. So think about, your printer at home that costs not a lot, but it
costs less than your PlayStation.
Color printing. It used to, you could do fax machine with it. You can scan. They give you this at a pretty low price because they're going to sell you the ink, right? So as a business model, just so you understand what Facebook is doing, the technology is very intense. You put this thing on, it's got cameras on the front, audio devices, privacy concerns abound, but the idea that it's something that you can operate in your space, you can be in this virtual world, it works. I'm very interested in what this is going to look like in 2 or 3 years from now as we get into Tony Stark territory where glasses and you got the pop-up display and all this kind of stuff, and you get information readouts. Years ago when Google Glass came out, the idea of walking into a networking meeting and have people's names pop up in front of me as I'm seeing their faces. Well, I think for a lot of people that's spurns privacy concerns. For me, that was like, that's awesome. I always forget people's names. And I don't mean to. I remember the person, but what is their name? I was like, as an introvert's fantasy, right, of like being able to see people's names. But we're getting into that place where, it's the future's here, right? There's lots of different ways. So just for everybody, the Oculus is a thing. It's a big deal money-wise because there's a huge amount of money in the apps. My 10-year-old, I've had to cut him off because he's obsessed. Like if you're not paying attention to it, it's like, the folks that, were very big in the typewriter industry saying this computer thing is never going to be a thing. People don't want to type a letter on a computer, right? You know how that worked out. Chris just says, I've been dying to get an Oculus, just been reluctant. Chris, if you like games, and Angela is going to talk a little bit about it here because this is something I have not done with the Oculus, but if you enjoy some games and stuff, it is fun. You can do some workout routines with it. Talk to me. I highly encourage. It's a fun purchase. Go ahead, Angela. Talk to us about how you're using this for meetings.
I actually had our first team meeting in this yesterday, and what I love about it is, one, we're virtual. We're a remote company first, no matter what. Outsource is 100% remote, started remote, and will always be remote. Actually, I don't know about that one. We may get an office, but we are 100% remote and will stay remote for the remainder of the future. The reason being is because look at the pandemic. A lot of people have seen that their jobs can be done at home. They had to be done at home. And so now with companies trying to bring people back, there's fight. Because why would I have to add an extra stress to my day to something that I probably already don't want to do? And that's why remote work is going to be the future of work, especially if companies start like really forcing people back into the office. And that's going to be, companies are offering work from home jobs as like an incentive, like, hey, you can work from home. Before the pandemic, it was an incentive. During the pandemic, it was standard. And now as people go back to work, like in offices, it's going to become now like a luxury. Oh, hey, I will leave this job because we're going to have to go back and go find another remote job because I can work from home. I can apply from home. Why would you want me to come back in? And so when you want someone to come back in that particular sense, they know that's an ego play. You would like to feel high and mighty. And so remote distributed work is going to be absolutely amazing, especially for smaller businesses, as other markets in different countries start rising, because they'll be able to displace that work into a lot lower bracket for a lot less money. And so distributed work, remote work, virtual work is going to be the future, because not only is it going to open up barriers for small business owners to get work done on a less expensive basis, it's going to create economies in third world countries so that they can now increase work. Look at places like India. A lot of their lower markets are starting to increase because they're becoming freelancers. They're web developers. They're doing all of these remote work, and they're supporting, US, UK, Canada, those kind of countries, and being paid, what we would consider less than market value, but above market value over there. And so remote work really bridges the idea of frictionless work and just adds an extra layer of fun. It doesn't add a layer of friction that commute has. It adds a layer of fun because there's so many different multi-dimensionals. You have the ability to mute, you have the ability to share screens, you can drop off. It makes things a lot more seamless. And as it just becomes more popular, it's just going to be harder to ignore, right? If I have the ability to meet with you in person, but can't, we're going to meet on video. Instead of being in video, imagine being in virtual person. And so everyone loves human connection.
So I'm just trying to imagine, I'm still trying to wrap my head around meeting on an Oculus, because I'm sitting there trying to think, all right, I got this mask on, and then I'm like trying to find something on my desk, and I could realize, see that as a nightmare. How was it, first of all, meeting on the Oculus, so I could get that out of my brain? And then two, how can people prepare themselves for working from anywhere, right? How can they set up their office? I got a lot of paper in my office. I got a lot of stuff how do you get from a paper to not paper and being able to literally work from anywhere?
Well, that's something that takes a little bit more specified details, because every industry is different. So, for example, if you're a lawyer, it's going to probably be a lot harder to switch to virtual because other lawyers are resistant to switch to virtual. And so, just like with anything, the actual euphoria moment comes when other people are using it. And so if you're in an industry that is just kind of lagging, you can make it so that your office works virtually, but it's very hard to then communicate with other offices that are going to do things paper. So I would say, look at your industry and see how far away are you from being 100% virtual. If you're able to be 100% virtual, go virtual. Start taking all of your papers, scanning them into PDFs, taking all of your current work that you would be sending out as paper, turning that into fillable PDFs so that when you get it back, it's all in just an email, and just digitize everything. It's actually, I think, easy to show because I don't have anything on it now, but my desk is clear. There's nothing ever on my desk other than the computer. I don't have paperwork, any of that. And that's because we made it a point to say, no, email this to me. No, we don't meet in person. No, we don't take faxes, because people are going to test that. They're going to say, oh, can I just drop this off? No, you cannot. Email it. Oh, can I just fax this over? No, you cannot. Email it. Everything has to move through the virtual world. And in order to do that, you have to be moving things virtually. So taking notes, like a lot of things, like this is a big one. I have clients that send us pictures of handwritten notes to put it onto the computer. Now, I'm not going to complain. That's what you'd like to use our services for. It's one of the many use cases that we can do. However, how much more efficient could you be if you took your notes on the computer? The reason I started taking my notes on the computer is because if you're taking notes on paper, how often are you actually reviewing them? That's what I really would like you to know. And how hard is it for you to review your notes on paper? Whereas on the virtual world, you can take it on the computer and then do a search find for anything that you need at any particular point. And so I just think being virtual is about organization and really streamlining a lot of your processes.
I love
That's
that.
the best way to go virtual.
And let me say this, because I like hearing that. It's some tough love for some folks that are used to doing things the paper way. If you're in the old school, and I consider myself definitely part of the old school on that, like, I write notes in a journal, and I just hearing you say, because I understand these technology tools and I use them, if I did my journal completely online, I'd be able to search it. Now, there might be some people, well, I write private stuff. I don't want that stuff out there. I don't want it accessible. And I can already think through my head, well, there's some solutions. You can keep it offline, right? You can make sure that it's a Word document versus, a Google Doc or something like that. So I think it's really interesting. For every problem, there's a solution. For every solution, there's a problem, right? I think that, we're in a world where some of these solutions are creating some other problems, and people are wrapping their heads around it, right? But the idea that working with you can get me to a better place where I'm doing fillable PDFs. You said that, and I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I don't know how to do that. But being able to fast track your learning, you're working with somebody that does know how to do it, that has brought their office to a completely paperless space. What better way to actually get there? So thank you for presenting that opportunity with what you're talking about today. Angelo, where can people reach you? Obviously, if you're watching on LinkedIn, follow the links in the description there. You can find Angelo's information to connect with him, and I think you should connect with him on LinkedIn. But where can they go website-wise and whatnot to find you on the interwebs here?
You can find me at Angelo Roberts Jr. across all social media. You can follow Offsource at OffsourceHQ, or you can visit us online at offsource.tech. Again, all the links will be in there, but offsource.tech, at Angelo Roberts Jr., and at OffsourceHQ.
Love it. Love it. All right. So we have an amazing week coming at you. Angelo, thank you so much for doing this show with me. I just want to encourage everybody, jump into those comments. If you liked what you saw today, let us know. If you got something of value from this, if you have a question that didn't get answered, put that into the comments. You're watching this on the replay, you have a question, hashtag replay, get into the DMs, follow up with us. We want to answer your questions on this. I really am excited about the week to come here. We got a lot of great guests. BizDev Live is getting started into this January season. Angelo, thanks so much for starting us off here. January 4th, 2022. Happy New Year to everybody. Angelo, thank you.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much for having me, Cameron. I loved being on the show. I can't wait till my second appearance.
We're going to get that going on. All right, everybody, have an amazing day. Get into the comments. Let us know what you thought. Questions, follow up. You know, the beauty, the truth, the future, the answer to all your questions is in the follow-up. Make sure you're following up. We got Vincent checking in. Thanks for doing this comment here and let us know you're watching. Cameron, amazing guest this morning. So Angelo, kudos to you. Great job.
Thank you so much, Vincent.
Have an amazing day. Have a great rest of your week. Whenever you're watching this, so glad you chose to be here with us. See you tomorrow on BizDev Live.
BizDev Live, BizDev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Live. BizDev Live, BizDev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation. Empathy and inspiration. BizDev Live, BizDev Live. Business development, not even selling it. BizD with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. BizD with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. BizDev Live, BizDev Live.